Welcome to DEFN episode number 55. I think we took a bit of a break for the, I don't know why, maybe it's some sort of a solstice break or whatnot. But we're back.
Festivals, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
exactly. So we're back. This is Vijay from Holland.
Raimundo from Belgium.
And we have a special guest all the way from Germany.
Hi, I'm Martin.
Hello, Martin. So maybe you should introduce yourself, Martin.
Yeah, so I'm Martin from Berlin, and I work on this thing called Next Journal, which is a computational notebook. And yeah, we started out a bit differently, but these days it's all written in Clojure.
Perfect. I think that this is a Clojure podcast, by the way, so I think we can talk about some Clojure later.
we always get to Clojure eventually, you know.
Yes. I think the last 5 minutes are completely about Clojure. So the rest of the stuff is mostly nonsense. But yeah.
Actually, the last time we met, Martin, was when you were in Belgium, wasn't it? When you were in Belgium for the Heart of Clojure conference.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That
was in August, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I don't think that was a really nice conference. I think we talked about it last time as well. It was super fun. And so Martin, I mean, you work at Next Journal in Berlin. So what is Next Journal?
Yeah, we are building a computational notebook with a focus on reproducibility.
Lots of buzzwords.
Yes.
Can you explain to us, like, what do you mean by reproducibility? Why that focus?
Reproducibility is about like if you like run something today, ideally it should also be running tomorrow, or
that seems like a goal for every program.
Right. But also a problem that everybody who uses a computer has experienced.
Exactly.
Is this the what's it called? Like that thing they had in Heroku, the 6-factor app or whatever it was, the 12-factor app, the 12-factor app.
Yeah.
Is it the 12-factor
app? You just ignored 6 of them.
Yeah, well, I was rounding down, you know.
We don't need 12. We're enough with 6.
Exactly, yeah. Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure how many people did really do 12, and some of the 12 were actually bullshit, but okay.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like the 10 Commandments, you know. There's a lot of repetition there.
Yeah.
You know, we get it. We should worship you. Then there's about 3 left, I think, you know. Anyway, we don't want to get into that. So, Martin, the problem with Heroku, what they were saying was that if you make an app, then tomorrow the operating systems change, the libraries change, the frameworks change, all these kind of things. Is that essentially the problem you have with like computational notebooks as well?
Well, the problem I think is mostly about when you discover something like an interesting paper or something, and when you try to run it, like I've been in this situation a couple of times, and it almost never works. And the older the paper gets, the more problems you run into. It's basically pretty much impossible down the road to get old code to run.
I'm confused by what do you mean by an old paper? Is a paper a term you use for some sort of
like a scientific paper?
Okay.
Oh, you mean the experimentation?
Sorry?
There's no code in the paper.
Yeah. No. So a paper linking to some code on GitHub or
Right.
Yeah. So it's also about now I get it, I think, because I was thinking Next Journal is basically like Jupyter or something, but it is more than that. It is more about the journal thing comes out of this scientific research reproducibility. Is that correct?
Right.
Wow, I feel smart already. Now I understand a bit more. Okay, but how does it compare with Jupyter and other things?
So Jupyter is basically it's just a Python library that gives you some this literate programming, so the ability to have code cells and have narrative that goes along with them.
Yeah.
But a lot of things like the are outside of Jupyter's domain, like setting up the computational environment. So like the operating system, that's nothing that Jupyter takes care of.
Yeah, of course.
As well as like how do you get to the data?
Yeah.
And yeah, with Nextjournal, we built like a system that encompasses all these things, and yeah, that uses immutability at all layers of the system. So you like when you work in the system, the idea is that like without putting in extra effort or much extra effort, it's easily runnable in the future as well.
So it is a bit like Heroku then for like scientific papers, in the sense that it's like a platform as a service type thing that you can deploy your proofs into.
Right. Yes.
Oh, so Nextjournal is like it's not something that I can run on my own hardware?
You can't run it locally currently. That's
Okay.
the thing that we're working on. Currently, it's only in the cloud.
So how do you achieve this reproducibility at different layers? Because as Ray was saying, there are like so many moving parts, like everything is fucking changing left and right. So how do you maintain this?
So on the data layer, we use content addressing. So yeah, when you upload a file or when a cell produces a result, we put this into content address storage and version it for you. So that's an append-only storage.
Yeah.
And regarding the computational environment, you can save your whole operating system as a Docker image.
Okay. So essentially, the entire operating system plus libraries plus your experimentation code plus the data is the whole thing that is versioned.
Right.
Okay.
So do you provide, just a quickie, do you provide like the base operating systems then, Martin? So you provide like some Linux version or other?
Yes, these are also created in notebooks.
Well, you specify them in a Docker file or something, like from Ubuntu?
No, you just have bash cells that can perform whatever installations.
Okay.
And you can import Docker images into our system.
Right.
So we're running our own Docker registry that's also immutable, so you can't delete stuff or rename stuff. And we never identify images by their tags, but always by their hashes. So
there is no force push.
Right.
Okay.
Isn't there a bit inconvenient in some ways if you can't, like a lot of these things, if you can't edit them, if you can't delete them, isn't that a bit inconvenient sometimes if you actually do want to edit them and delete them?
Well, yes, the lawyers don't find that very don't like that very much.
Yeah.
Currently, when stuff would end up there, that shouldn't be there. This would be a manual intervention.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if like people copying AWS keys and shit and whatnot and secrets, and then you're pretty much screwed.
But
then.
also, if you have, I guess you've got like GDPR risks as well. If people are putting personal data on there, like as part of their data set.
Yes, I mean, we don't publish all this stuff by default. That's still like, yeah, even though the data would be in our system, then like, yeah, you still can't really guess the hash, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely something, to consider, and where we'd have to do manual intervention currently.
Okay, I think we're being like proper software engineers. I mean, just talking about the problems first. Maybe we should talk about the features first. Like everybody who opens something, it's always like, oh, how many ways this system can be bad?
Can we go through all the edge cases first, please?
Exactly. Let's talk about everything. Oh, wait a minute. But what about if I'm running on Nix with whatever the fuck with all some sort of a weird anyway? So let's get to the real meat, which is like proper features of this thing. So this is operating system level, and like Jupyter, that means you can support any language, right? So you can just use any language you'd like, and on the journal page.
So yeah, we do support Jupyter kernels as the runtime protocol. So yeah, you can basically use any language that has a Jupyter kernel, and yeah, we also support other protocols like Clojure's PREPL.
Yeah.
And yeah, like our own protocol is a bit inspired by PREPL.
Okay. And so essentially you can mix and match the languages within as well. Like, so the data, for example, in one cell, I produce something using Python, and then in the second cell, I can consume it in Julia or whatever. Or is it possible?
Yes, this is possible.
Okay. So that could be, but how does the data exchange work then between them?
This is then being exchanged through this content address storage. So runtimes can exchange files.
Yeah.
Like we had this in an earlier version as well, and this will come back at some point. That like currently it's just these file blobs are being exchanged, and you have to do the parsing yourself in the language. Yeah, but we'll bring that back to be automatic sometime in the future.
Okay.
Like yeah, when you pass transit between the cells, or yeah, JSON.
Okay. So how does the like, is there multi-user thing, because it is hosted, right? So at the same time you can edit that file, whatever you call it, like cell notebook, then I can edit the same thing. Do you handle the multi-user thing as well? How does it work?
Yes, we have collaborative editing, like via operational transform. Yes, so you can work on the same notebook currently.
That's probably, I think I heard that there is something like CRDTs and whatnot for the editing, right? Or is it similar to that one?
We are using operational transform, which is the like simpler version. Like it needs a centralized authority, which CRDT does not. But then it doesn't come with the, like CRDT has this problem that like the document only grows as you're editing it, and yeah, with OT, which like Google Docs also uses, like yeah, it's the central authority that decides what to keep, and it's the clients that rebase changes against this central authority. So your server doesn't need to keep all edits that were ever made.
Okay. So you were just, I think right before we started the episode, you were talking about where did NextJournal come from. So maybe a bit of history, where did you guys come from? And then can you give us some idea?
Yeah, so like the core team, we've actually been working together for like 13 years now. And we started out building this traditional German card game.
Which one? you need to explain the card game to us now in an audio fashion. This is going to be amazing.
So yeah, the game that we've been running, it's called Schafkopf, and this is only played in southern Germany. This is a trick-taking card game. So yeah, it's, you might have heard of Oktoberfest, which is happening here in Munich. So you
of course, everybody did.
Imagine like 4 Bavarians sitting at a table in lederhosen and dirndl, so the traditional Bavarian outfit, and drinking beer and playing cards.
Okay. But sorry, what is the game called again? Schafkopf?
Schafkopf. It's like sheep's head. Yeah, in German.
that's sheep's head?
Yes.
Okay. But is it like a card game with the playing cards, like the normal cards, or is special cards?
Yeah, it's a Bavarian version of the normal cards you might know from poker. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you guys made an online version of it?
Right. Yes.
Is that, do you met each other at Oktoberfest or?
I can imagine all the 13 guys in lederhosen and then sitting together having a beer. Like, okay, let's make an online version
after
of
a
it.
few.
Yes, and that's how we how the community made its first money as well, by selling virtual beers at the table.
Wow. So what was that built on? What is the stack that you guys used for that one?
So in the very early days, this was like a Rails website and a Java game server.
Okay.
And yeah, then it was like, yeah, as it picked up a bit in popularity, we pretty soon experienced all these like Java concurrency pains.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like we tried to fix the Java server for a while, but didn't really get that to work. So like after a while, decided that it's like, yeah, we really couldn't figure out how to fix this.
What were the actual problems, Martin? Just,
so scaling issues, that it would get slow, like with like 1,000 concurrent players. And then also it wasn't stable. So in the end, it was like this, it would run for 2 weeks and there was some like race condition that occurred and the server would be gone like this.
So every 2 weeks you have a cron job to restart the server.
You have a little Docker whale up there. So the fail whale is up.
Like yeah, people were praying for our server.
The sheep's head was severed.
Floating around.
Yeah. Yeah, this was with a couple of days away from my job, or visiting RailsConf. I came back and decided to rewrite the thing in Erlang.
Okay.
Oh. And how did that go?
That went really well. Like this was like 3 months, and yeah, then it went live, and yeah, it's been serving us really well to this day. And like Erlang is really incredible there. Like especially the ability to like change the code while the server is running. These hot code deployments that Erlang can do. This is, yeah, for game servers, I think it's really a great choice.
Okay. So you went to RailsConf and then decided to rewrite it in Erlang.
Right.
Is that because everyone at RailsConf was basically saying, we're all writing everything in Erlang again.
Like, want to rewrite your code in Erlang? Come to RailsConf. That's their pitch. We tell you what not to do with Rails.
I think this, was 2008 or something, like where, there was quite a bit of talk about Erlang in the Ruby community.
Yeah, that's true. I think 2008, 2009. Yeah, I remember having an Erlang course as well during that time in Amsterdam. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't get the syntax. I mean, it was like super archaic way of writing things in Erlang, I think.
Right. You kind of feel like, you're doing this, like, why is there 3 ways to end, to end a sentence?
With a full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it's a
semicolon, nothing, or full stop.
It's literate programming.
Exactly. Yeah, I was too illiterate for it. So, so you started with Java, and then the same team switched to Erlang, pretty much, for the sheep's head, Schafkopf.
Yeah.
Schafkopf. Yeah. So, and then you guys are like, okay, enough of the games. Now let's do some serious shit, and then move to next journal.
Right. This was a process that took like 10 years or so. But something like
people
that.
Trying to was the idea that people were trying to somehow prove scientific papers via the sheep's head game?
There were enough papers about that, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna try to reproduce the sheep's head. But I saw some recently talking about the papers. I saw there was somebody who wrote a paper about the fluid dynamics that cause the coffee to spill when you're walking with a mug. Well, like entire paper, like all the fluid dynamics and how you're supposed to have that. And then they found out the optimal way. One of the optimal way of having not to spill the coffee is to have the cup in a concentric circles of smaller sizes, so inside of the cup. Then you won't spill the coffee apparently. So I guess we need to use Nextdoor to find out, like, is this true? Exactly. Somebody is funding this. Internet. Anyway, so why didn't you guys then, because you had plenty of experience with Erlang running this highly scalable sheep's head Schafkopf game?
Yeah.
So how did the next journal start in terms of technology stack?
This was, we were starting out with Elm and Elixir. So we had from on the backend side had kind of moved like from Rails and Erlang to Elixir, and Phoenix is like the Rails framework there.
Yeah,
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And on the client side, really enjoyed Elm when we were starting out, and did some experiments with that, and that's what we did.
Did you just decide that everything had to begin with the letter E? Is that the idea?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's not a bad metric, it's good stuff there.
So then it's just a prototype, or how did it scale?
So the Elm thing, like, this was pretty quickly that we realized, like, well, it had served as well on the things we did before, which were sort of isolated. On Nextdoor, we had to do like a lot of interop with existing JavaScript libraries, and like Code Mirror for the code editing, and like a library for this content editable shit browser. And this is really painful in Elm. Like, you get this nice pure language, and with these pretty amazing guarantees, like this, when it compiles, it runs, which really is the case. Oftentimes, it's quite amazing, I think. But when you want to interop with other libraries, it just becomes a huge pain. You basically have to talk to this library as if it was an external JSON server somewhere.
Yeah, you have to use these ports. Yeah.
Right. And also, Elm was undergoing some pretty major changes at the time. So Elm 17 came out, and this like did away with like the signal graph, which was a pretty essential part until then. And this was quite disruptive to the ecosystem. And like all libraries, like, it took, I think, months until all libraries would catch up and be compatible again. And so I figured we don't really want to go through this like once a year.
Yeah, I think especially coming from language like Erlang, which has been like solid and forever, and then you switch to this thing like every 6 months, every 3 months, you need to keep updating the stuff and rewriting the application.
Well, and for a brief period, we tried to go back to JavaScript, but there we realized this is this was definitely a worse idea, even.
Did you look at the other options as well, Martin, like PureScript or things like, because PureScript is a bit more Haskell-y, isn't it, than ClojureScript is? So it's a bit more like from Elm, and it's a bit more, what should we say, friendly towards JavaScript. You can just run it.
I think like basically like Reason, ML, OCaml. This was like it was a choice between ClojureScript and Reason at the time. But like Reason was just getting started, like with their React wrappers. So we like talked to some people about this, and they couldn't recommend it, or like said we should be ready for doing a lot of this like early framework or library code, having to work on that ourselves. And yeah, so this made me really like take a serious look at ClojureScript, which I had ignored for the longest time before that, like really not seeing through the parentheses.
So did you have any idea about Clojure or ClojureScript at that point, Martin?
Well, it was recommended to me like a couple of times. I think like when Stu's book came out, I got that as well, like recommended by a friend, and like read it to the first page where I saw some code on it and put it away again. And yeah, I really like. Yeah,
you'd actually been through Erlang and you puked at the syntax of Clojure. Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. I think you already lost that points already when you started with Erlang.
Yeah, and we had one of the freelancers working for us. He was a fan, but yeah, it didn't really get through to me until we were really faced with this problem. Like, yeah, we want a sane functional language, and yeah, we need good interop, and it was also like running into Matt Hubert at this conference. This was Curry on in 2016. I think David Nolan was also presenting there, and seeing Matt Hubert's like he also worked on this notebook prototype, which kind of like Cells it was called, which later kind of turned into Maria. And seeing what he had done there was definitely quite impressive and made me take a serious look at ClojureScript.
So how is the front end built? So now you started picking up ClojureScript. So essentially all the front end is now ClojureScript right now in production?
Yes.
Okay. So how is the architecture like? Which libraries that you use and how is it being built? Maybe some idea about the frameworks or architecture?
Yeah, we're using Reframe, used that from the start. And then what are we using library-wise? We're using Reddit now for the client-side routing. And basically sharing views between our Clojure app to do server-side. So we do server-side rendering on the JVM. And have specs that convert like our data from the database like into view data which the client requests.
Okay. And there is in the backend now, is there still some Erlang Elixir running?
No, the more we started getting Clojure and learning more about it, this lasted like I think it took a year after we started with ClojureScript, and we had rewritten everything on the backend as well.
Well, how did that go then? Because it's, I mean, I would still argue, or we could have an interesting discussion actually about the model for Clojure on the backend versus Elixir. It seemed quite different.
Yeah, but as I learned about Datomic, with for a site focusing on reproducibility, I think Datomic is really a great fit. So for example, we don't want to break any links, but we also don't want to do all this housekeeping work ourselves from the start. And with Datomic, we just know we can always recover information and set up redirects later, even if we don't have to do all this work from the start.
Okay, so before switching to Datomic, what was the data storage?
Postgres,
Okay, so you were maintaining essentially quote unquote immutability in Postgres by just appending or copying the data.
Right, using event sourcing basically for each notebook. Yes.
So just so we get this straight then, so you were doing ClojureScript in the client. Did you do Clojure and Postgres, or did you just say, okay, no, now we know Datomic, we're going to rewrite the backend in Clojure to serve Datomic?
Plus.
Yes, that's what we did. Yeah, it wasn't really that we wanted to use Clojure from the start, but we really wanted to use Datomic.
No.
But it also didn't seem sensible, to use Datomic with our Elixir backend, really. So at first we started swapping out like just a part that's reading and writing data, and eventually also this code execution part.
Okay. So how is that? Because I can imagine that, as you said, the entire, is that called a notebook? Like every project, or what is the nomenclature there? Is one?
The document thing is a notebook, yes.
Okay, yeah. So one notebook is one Docker image. How does it work?
No, so one notebook is basically one VM instance that we do for you to execute code. And you can have more than one Docker image. Like if you use like 3 different libraries, or you can 3 different languages, or can also use 4 Python runtimes that use different Docker images. Yes.
Yeah. And now how does because I can imagine Erlang and Elixir are more or less native, because they have you can call all the operating system level things. So the VM management and Docker image management, this also happens via Clojure?
Yes, there we're using this Spotify Docker. It's a Java library to do this Docker stuff.
Okay.
And Docker under the hood is also just a HTTP daemon, basically.
Yeah. So you interact with Clojure Java libraries and then Clojure, and then
yes.
Okay, impressive. And where is your next journal running? Is it on your own cloud stuff, or
we run on Google Cloud currently?
So how does it compare with the Google Colab, by the way? Because Google had this Colab thingy.
Yeah, Colab is pretty much, that's just a Jupyter front end, basically. So you also can't store like Docker images there. Can't store like for data storage. It also then just uses what's it called? The Google.
The Spanner.
Google Big Table and whatnot, or Google Cloud Storage.
Yeah.
Spanner. Yeah. No, Google Object Storage or something. Yeah.
No, just a Google
Like
Drive or
S3?
something.
Oh yeah, right. It stores the notebook into Google Drive. Yes.
So I guess that one of the things about Google, or one of the things about Datomic, is that it has this cloud version that runs on Amazon, but it doesn't run on Google. So I guess you have to run Datomic yourself in the Google Cloud.
Yes, we're running the on-prem version.
I always think it's funny to run the on-prem version in the cloud, but
on the cloud.
It's not that funny, I guess, really.
Well, then your cloud essentially becomes your data center, right? It's not like real cloud, but you just take some VMs.
It was before there was a Datomic Cloud that we migrated. And then we would have also had to switch to AWS.
Yeah. So how was the transition? Like, how do you compare the backend in Elixir or Erlang with the backend in Clojure?
Yeah, I think it went fairly well. There's still a couple of things that I sometimes miss from the Beam VM. Like I feel like core async or concurrency, definitely like this is just a bit safer in Erlang Elixir. You can shoot yourself in the foot more easily with core async. On the other hand, this interop in ClojureScript, or in Clojure, it's really nice. Like being able to know, like we don't use it at this point yet, but like being able to like do really fast number crunching, like when you want to parse or archive parts of data, like to know that there's all these libraries for the JVM, which wouldn't exist for the Beam is really nice.
And performance-wise, did you see? Because usually you hear, or at least on the internet, at least, like people saying, okay, you can run crazy amount of users per machine, whatever, on Erlang. So how in your experience, how is Clojure scaling compared to Erlang?
We don't have this problem yet, unfortunately.
unless you move your sheep's head into Clojure.
Right, but we're not going to touch that anymore.
Don't touch the working system. Yeah.
No, so I can't. I mean, it's definitely like, I think it's hard to write like something that scales as well as like an Erlang web server, or like if you want to do this like WebSocket communication and things, it's really a perfect match there, and the way VM uses all the cores effectively, and like it doesn't care what you do in one process. It's never gonna like halt the whole system. I think that's gonna be hard to, or it's harder to do this in Clojure than it is in Erlang, I feel like.
Yeah. And is the Beam VM also GC driven thing, like JVM?
Yes, but it's pretty simple to GC, because every processes don't share any state. So a message that's sent to another process is just copied, basically, and it's just binaries that are garbage collected on it. But simple terms are just copied, basically.
Yeah. So that's why it's a bit more, not bit more. That's why it's more efficient.
One of the things that I know, I mean, I don't know if Rich would say this himself, but like one of the criticisms that he seems to have of Erlang is the actor model, because it's not as, you have to send messages, it's not as expressive as like Transit or Eden is in terms of message passing or function passing. Is that something that you found as well, or is it something that you haven't, it hasn't concerned you?
Well, I definitely think we are writing code a bit differently now in Clojure. Like there's when you have these processes, there is quite a bit of ceremony also setting up them, getting them to talk to each other. And in Clojure you realize maybe you need your state only at the very edge of the system, right? And do a lot more with pure functions. So I'm kind of with Rich by now on this, I think.
You've been indoctrinated properly.
You swallowed the blue pill.
Definitely. On a lot of things. What would be nice if, I think, we had sort of this trade-off that Erlang and Elixir makes, like for building like stable systems, or that we are running at a bit less top speed, basically, but therefore we don't have to worry about locking. Like, so the Beam VM, when a process does something, it counts like how many operations it does, and then after a while it exits it, like it stops this process and lets the thread do something for some other process, right?
It's like a yield. It's like a, what do they call it? Like a yield, like a
continuation.
Continuation process. Yes.
So that's a bit slower in top speed, basically. Like but you don't get these things like when you do a blocking read or something. It can't halt your whole thread.
So what are the things that you, other than this one, so what other things do you miss from Erlang when you're writing things in Clojure?
Well, I think like with Phoenix, the getting started experience it's this frameworks versus libraries debate, right? There's definitely two sides to that. I remember getting started, diving into the Clojure ecosystem was very overwhelming for me. And you have to make you think you settle on this language, but that's when all the choices basically start. And it goes down to so many levels. And it's also I guess coming from this, or these choices aren't as consequential as they are, do I pick Rails or Phoenix or whatever. But I was coming from this place where I thought they would be as consequential, and then it's quite stressful to make them all.
So you have to, at every point, you have to make a decision which library you're going to use and how it is going to.
Blah blah blah, and am I right or wrong? Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. But that is, I think, one of the biggest concerns, or I would say even complaints. Every time I see on Reddit or something, people asking for, okay, how do I start building web application? Because there is Duct, there is Yada, there is Composure, there is, okay, if you go to a level below, there is Ring. And of course, Luminous is helping you in setting up a template. But then it also gives you a lot of choices, like which one you want to use for front end and the back end and every other library.
Yeah.
I think Rails did that pretty well, I think.
No, I definitely like this getting started. Yeah. I mean, when we made the choice to move to Pedestal, I think, we didn't get anything. It took us 2 weeks to get the very basics. Who's swallowing my logging output and stuff like this.
I think this is definitely a big issue especially for the getting started experience. I would say.
I think you get that time back later in the process. But
yeah.
I think you can also maybe have both sides there, really. But
totally. I think that's the thing. I think when you start and then you don't have this getting started experience, and then you build something, and you are already past the advanced beginner stage, so you don't look back anymore because you already know. And once you cross that boundary, then people don't think about how it is like to be at that level. So it is always tricky. But these days, I think it at least for the front end and other stuff, things have become a bit more reasonable. I think pedestal times were different.
Yeah. No, I definitely think, also, we had our fair struggle with tooling. And we started with lining in, then moved to boot, and back to lining in, and then finally to tool steps and figure remain. And it was also got some good help there from Arne, who's running Lambda Island and Heart of without that, I think we would have been pretty lost there as well. We just.
That's true. I think it's a bit of a shame, right? Because especially when the language and everything else is so stable and so attractive to build systems, and then the whole beginner experience is kind of tricky for people. When you've been writing software for decades, and then you come to it, you come to expect some things when you start with the language. And a simple thing like build tool has 2 different communities and 3 different communities now.
Yeah, but maybe it's also this these two sides of the coin, how powerful and productive you can be, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Personally, I think, by the way, that I think this notion that a framework is the greatest thing for me, it's a bit of a problem, because I think, like you say, Martin, everything is consequential. If you've got this big decision to make at the beginning of the of your project, then you're very reluctant to change from Rails to something else. Whereas with Clojure, you start with pedestal and then you move to something else and you top out the root. Everything is more composable. So I think I think it feels a bit daunting at the beginning, this like beginner experience, because you haven't got all your choices defined in one like neat package. But on the other hand, I think the fact that you can make your own framework essentially out of parts is quite attractive. You don't have to commit to a very big ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, you also don't. Yeah, I learned this over time. If I was to tell my 3-year ago self, to not stress out about this so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of tooling, so Emacs or some other shit. So what do you guys use at NextJournal?
SpaceMax these days, and there.
Finally, some reasonable choice.
There, I think it's also this is also like this was very painful for me in the beginning because of questions like this. You think like I can't. There's no other way for me to do Clojure than Emacs.
VJ still believes that, yeah.
But by the way, I mean, you come from Erlang, and I know, I think late Joe Armstrong, he used Emacs all the time, right? He was using Emacs for Erlang. And he's another. So I think it's as Ray was. I think he's very rarely right, and he said that any software that starts with E. So that is something that I think he was right. Like using Emacs is the only way. But how? So your team everybody uses Emacs for the ClojureScript and Clojure as well, or
we have so we have a shared SpaceMax config that's used by most of us. We have one IntelliJ person as well. One is using VI.
It's usually other way around. I think I'm usually the Emacs guy, and then the rest of everybody is using IntelliJ or something, or even VS Code and whatnot these days. And
also, I don't have to touch my config. I'm just telling my colleague Dieter to. I have this problem. Can you please figure this out?
Just out of interest, I mean, we kind of often joke about these editors, but we none of us at my work, none of us use Emacs. We all use IntelliJ. But I don't feel like it really affects our workflow too much. But I get the impression from Emacs people that it kind of does. I don't know. Exactly. What's your feeling?
I think
maybe it's Martin can answer this one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and he's the guest. I can rant on this shit forever. So.
Oh no, I actually missed one. We have one person, using Adam with par and fair, and he's very happy with this, and that's what I would definitely recommend for getting started as well. Like, do you use par and fair then with IntelliJ, or?
Man, I know. I mean, I'm aware of it, but I'm too used to the barf and slurping and all this kind of like code movement around. The problem is, I mean, I think it's one of these things where if you're starting today with Cursive or something, you probably would go with par infer, because why wouldn't you? But when I first started, it wasn't available, so I had to learn these other commands, and now it sort of feels like I'm kind of used to it. I think it's like the Emacs people who are kind of used to their way of doing things. But I've used PowerInfer for like I made a web REPL, and I use PowerInfer there, and it works quite well. So I like it a lot. But I just don't use it every day. Does PowerInfer work on? I don't think it works on Emacs, does it? PowerInfer?
No. I think there was one port at some point, but obviously, Paredit is the way to edit the code anyway. So it's been there for 25 years.
I think Emacs doesn't have enough editor affordances, does it, for PowerInfer? I'm not joking about that. I think it's because it reads from the REPL. It doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. No, I mean, parent is just the editor side of it, right? It just indents the stuff based on
No,
what
but
you're
it gets
typing.
information
And-
from like where the cursor is and what the previous and next steps are and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the Emacs editor model is a bit different compared to the other ones. Yeah, that's true. But as you're saying, I think it makes sense that, I mean, regardless of which editor we use, I think in Clojure world, it's pretty much like whether you can send a snippet to REPL and then get the feedback. And that's, once that is set, it doesn't matter, right? Every editor, the editing experience is basically what you're used to, but the whole building the program experience is pretty much the same, I think, in every.
Well, I wonder about the pairing part of things, because like when we pair, we always pair. We pair with IntelliJ, and I kind of know what's going on. I can see what's happening, but I don't know if it affects your pairing experience, Martin, when you're doing like someone's doing Emacs and someone's doing VI, or when you've got like a heterogeneous environment of editors. What?
Yeah, it's problematic when I'm. So we usually let the person drive that's using his setup,
yeah.
but then I'm like reaching over. Then I can't do anything there. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think this is something I'm facing a lot these days, because I'm working with the folks who are using VS Code and whatnot, and on Windows, and all the things that are burnt into my fingers because of Maggot and all that stuff, and I need to go there and then type some weird shit to get to just commit some things or stage, and it's just really painful. I mean, once you, especially if you use Spacemacs, and then it's like 3 keys that I need to type to get to the Git status and everything. And then there I need to figure out.
Anyway, VJ, we're down in the weeds of your editor experience here, which is fucking fascinating, mate. I tell you. But maybe as we get back to next journal.
So next journal, does it support Emacs key bindings?
And if not, why not?
That's the bigger question here. Exactly. We demand it now.
Honestly, that's what I think I'm most interested in, to learn from Emacs, as this system that does everything, which kind of is a next journal aspiration as well. So
all we need is next journal mode for Emacs.
Years after working on next journal, well, did you hear about org mode, which does everything you've been?
I think that's pretty much everybody's answer in Emacs community. Just go there and then tell them something. Oh, what you did you hear about this .el? Okay. Anyway, so in terms of building the front end though for next journal, so what type of challenges did you face? And maybe similar, maybe the like an additional question for that, like now you have Clojure everywhere. How much is the code sharing between these two?
So in terms of challenges, I think it was less on the ClojureScript side. We've been really struggling a lot with this content editable stuff, and this has almost been switching out libraries there has been also almost like a rewrite of its own of the front end.
What does content editable mean, Martin? Maybe I don't quite understand that.
When this is this browser stuff where you can type HTML in the browser. So whenever you're editing text and you want the native browser selection to work, you have to deal with this content editable stuff.
Like the original browsers.
And that's I hear it's the worst API of the browsers. Every browser does this differently. Like what happens when you copy and paste and stuff like that. And we started out in our original model, each node that we had, each paragraph would be represented by a ClojureScript object, and we'd only use the editor for the small paragraph would be each its individual editor. But then you can't select across these boundaries, and so in terms of the Notion does this as well. Like if you've used that, like you notice when you select more than one paragraph, it draws their own custom selection.
Yeah. Notion is the note editor, right? Note taking app. Yeah. I used it for like a trial or something for some time. Yeah.
And so we earlier this year decided to move to a proper content editable document. So you get your selections working nicely, and this was another thing. I think we estimated this to take 6 weeks, and then it was almost half a year.
Whoa.
Wow. But it is not really a ClojureScript challenge, is it?
This was So
it's mostly
more
the
dealing
platform.
with these JavaScript these things that are just hard in the browser. Other than that, tooling definitely was a problem. But this has really gotten with tool steps and Figwheel main. We've especially doing we have I think 6 JavaScript targets. And Figwheel main has this extra mains thing now where you can use the same ClojureScript process or Clojure process to compile all those. This basically made our compile times much saner. And what else did we struggle with? The server-side rendering was that's I guess a bit of a pain sometimes to deal with the differences. But now we most of our code, all the view code and stuff, is now CLJC, and that now works pretty well. No, I think we're really happy with how things are going on the ClojureScript side.
Okay. So and how much code is shared between server and the client?
More and more, so the view code is shared. The routing, we're still that's on our to-do list. Currently, we still have separate routers. Want to move to Reddit on the server as well. And currently the thing that's Clojure only is this code execution stuff, and the pedestal handlers and this stuff.
So are you using a kind of classic REST API on the back end then, Martin?
No, I wouldn't call it classic REST. So we're basically when a client requests a page, it gets served just the data it needs to render this template as transit. And when we're passing, we have this where you normally on the Clojure side would render this and pass in your view data to this function, but we're doing the same call on the client and passing it the same data. So the first time you visit a site, you get the server side rendered thing, and then ClojureScript kicks in and gets the same data, renders the same page basically, and then the client-side routing takes over.
Okay. And how does this because you said there can be multiple language cells in this thing. So if I open Nextjournal notebook and then start typing R or Python, so those processes are started on the server side and then still being routed. The data is routed to them, and then how is that working in the backend?
Okay, so this we're also using pedestals interceptors for this for the code execution. So you're say you have some Python cell and type 1, 2, 3 in it and press run. Then we get this request. Then we figure out we don't have an instance to run this on. Then we assign you an instance, boot this up, and then we take this run request and then figure out, like, we use these pedestal interceptors as well to figure out like what's the current state of this. We call this runner, and like what needs to happen to serve this request. Like first I need to like download this Docker image. I need to boot this runtime process, and then I can start executing this cell. And that makes sense up to here.
So is this a kind of what should we say, a kind of imperative protocol or a kind of declarative protocol, or how do you do this? Because I imagine that this is quite gnarly to work out what the various code paths are, or what the various the various permutations of this.
We have this is the like a first interceptor that's sort of like similar what would be a router, like in a web app, is figuring out like I have this request and what kind of work needs to happen as a consequence of it. And then it enqueues other interceptors that do the actual work, like download this Docker image and boot up this runtime and then execute the cell.
So essentially you capture the std error and std out from that process, or how do you get the output back?
Right. This is then this is what the runtime protocol then does.
Okay.
Then you have like can either be PREPL or Jupyter or our own thing.
Before we move on now, I mean, just maybe it's just so because I'm interested in this how this web protocol works, because I still feel like it's I haven't quite got it in my head yet. So you get essentially a request coming in, and it goes on one part of the router, whatever you call it, and then that triggers some sort of payload or something that triggers what is the next. It must be some sort. Is it a dynamic suite of like interceptors, or is it like more declarative in your side?
So yes, this is one interceptor that does this planning work, right? And then it uses other interceptors to perform the side effect.
So the plans are predefined, essentially.
Yes, predefined. Yes.
You know what the possible plans are that will run, or is that something which you kind of like spirit up at the time of the request?
Well, you look at the server's state, like if this runtime is already running, right, I don't need to boot it, for example.
Sure, right?
And we just have this separate planning interceptor that like we can test this declared, like what this interceptor returns. It's just this new context map with interceptors enqueued, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So we can test this without performing any effects.
Yeah. Perfect. Interesting.
So that's declarative in a sense.
Who is the target audience right now? Is it only people who are writing scientific papers, or is it actually targeting like Jupyter and data scientists and all this stuff as well?
Well, good question. We're going a bit back and forth on this. I think it's heavy on academics currently. But there's definitely some people that want to do traditional data science. The idea would be to have like a GitHub kind of model. So people using it in public, using the product for free, using it in the open. And people that want to use it in private should pay for it. But our pricing, the way, like, we're making some changes to the pricing, like currently can't even try it out in private. Like to get secrets management, for example, you have to sign up for a paid plan. And making it easier for people to try it out, like with 5 private notebooks and And then hopefully we'll also get more people using it for traditional data science stuff.
So what's next for next journal? So what is on the roadmap?
What's next? I think what do we want to do? Like the import, I think we want to do a lot better on interop with GitHub.
Mhm.
So we're definitely noticing that there's quite a few people that would like next journal, would like their notebooks to be runnable by next journal, but they don't necessarily want to use the UI to create these notebooks. I mean, there's tons of notebooks already out there, like be it Jupyter or some markdown format, and getting these to easily import and run, and only updating them on GitHub and then syncing them to next journal. That's one of the main areas where we want to focus.
I'm trying to remember. There was another service that starts with a B, I think, that does similar kind of things, like on-demand free notebook.
Beaker maybe was, I think, a notebook. Is that it?
I'm not sure. It's a pretty obscure name. I only remember the first letter was B, but probably I'll remember at some point, because they had the similar kind of idea, like the GitHub for notebooks, pretty much, but not like extensive reproducibility or something. It's just like it might be in my browser history at some point. I need to look it up. But this is so essentially, if I have a repository with notebooks in GitHub, I can just pull them into next journal, and then I can work with them.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, and getting
okay.
I think the notebook format would be nice for tutorials, obviously, and I guess this whole interop story, making it as easy as possible for people to get their content in and keeping it up to date. That's where we can spend a lot of time still.
So you mean having some sort of hooks into the GitHub API to do that at the back end?
Yeah.
Nice. So I think we have just finished almost 1 hour. Any final thoughts? Questions?
Questions? Have you got?
So when are you going to?
Have you got any questions, Martin? Come on, mate. Ask VJ about his Emacs config. we want another hour of content after all.
Of course, we're going to spend until advent of Emacs. We're going to spend more time on that one.
Are you also not getting any work done because of advent of code, or?
Oh, I this year I started doing it in Rust. That basically means I'm just stuck on everything, which is amazing. So I got until day 3 so far in Rust. It's been fun because I have no fucking clue how to do even loops or anything like that. And especially when I start using these Clojure way of thinking, like just having an iterator and then start to iterate over it using map or whatever and different things, then everything is fucked up because I have no idea what borrowing means. And it keeps giving me weird errors and shit. And it's been some time since I use Scala. So on Rust, what happens is if you call an iterator, if you split a string, then the type that you get back is a split.
Let's not get into this, though.
Come on,
let's not get into it. We don't really need an hour of your Rust content. There's another podcast for that.
So I just spent I don't know 200 hours so far trying to figure out that shit. So I'm stuck at day 3 now, and day 3 first part
I'm beating. I'm beating you then.
But maybe I think I'm
at day 5 with Clojure, but day 5 is tough. I mean, day 5 looks like a nightmare, But I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. And you're doing it as well?
No, I want to do SIGP before I start on Advent. So it will be a couple of years still, maybe.
But you're really going to do it perfect at that point, though. Yeah, you're going to nail it.
Absolutely. But it seems like fun, though. I think I'll catch up on Clojure maybe during the Christmas time once I have some time. Maybe in the weekend sometime. But every day doing it is not going to be. And what I realized is that advent of code is not really an advent of code. It's advent of math or maths. It's kind of bullshit that they call it code because it doesn't make much sense because it's more about thinking mathematically and then representing that in your language rather than solving a code problem, I think.
Well, there's a joke that that Bork dude made, which I think is Rich says don't solve problems, not puzzles, but except for Christmas. So we're allowed to solve some puzzles this month in our spare time.
And I saw that I think it's probably Michiel or somebody retweeted. It's like a nerd sniping. Like if there is a problem, we want to solve it. Like they just put it somewhere in front of you, and then you're attracted to solving that shit, regardless of what kind of problem it is.
And the light,
Exactly.
Anyway,
nice. Okay, so
just a quickie before we head off. I mean, just a final point, actually, because I think this is something which is a bit, would be interesting to get from you, Martin. Is like you're in Berlin, and it's like the beating heart of Clojure in Europe is in Berlin. So how do you find like the Clojure community there? Are you involved in it quite a lot, or is it something which you just sort of
No, I was really surprised, getting how big and nice how big the community is, how nice everyone there is, and that it's almost I found there to be like an inverse hiring problem in Clojure in there's really good people that use Clojure, and they're now it's getting more and more that are doing it full time as well. But it's a great community there for sure. And was quite surprised that Berlin really seems to be special in that regard. As how big it is and how much is happening.
And speaking of Berlin, I think Clojure D is announced, and then it's going to happen on February something 23rd somewhere. Let me get that right. And the call for papers is still open, I think, or get your tickets. 29th February in Berlin. So I think that's happening.
Yeah, I'll be there. Also at BobConf the day before. It's also sounds nice.
Yeah. So it's a nice gathering of all the Berliner Clojure people.
Yes, and there's a data science meetup happening around Clojure D as well.
Yeah. Is it the day before on Friday? Or is it?
I'm not sure if it's been. I think BobConf is the day before, so they were thinking of doing it Thursday or Sunday. I think, yeah.
Okay. It'd be great to have that one as well. I think the one that you're talking about is the Daniel started. I think he was there at Clojure Tray as well.
Yeah,
right?
I wasn't there. Yeah. Okay. And this might happen at our office, I think, depending on how many people sign up. So if too many sign up, then we move to
then it'll move to some other place. Okay, that's nice.
Fantastic. Yeah,
it's been really nice talking to you, Martin. I think the whole journey of going from one language to the other, and then how you discovered the coziness of of parentheses. And then finally you realize that Emacs is the only tool. I think that's a really nice discovery. And then you have peaked with Emacs already.
Are we going to stop this? Come on.
No, I think we need to talk about Emacs more. But
wind it up, mate. Come on, wind it up.
It's a fascinating project, and I'm pretty sure that I only use Jupyter these days, but I'm curious how far you take next journal, and especially I think these days of people producing papers without any. This is one of the biggest problems that I see in the scientific community, that the whole reproducibility is not there at all. So people talking bullshit, and then you end up with no data available, no reproduction path available. No one can verify their claims. I think in a way this is not just technically, but also I think socially an important tool that you're building. I think so. It's really awesome, and it's really awesome that you're building it in Clojure and ClojureScript and Emacs. And so congratulations on the continued success of Sheep's Head, and hopefully you guys will do some amazing work with Next Channel as well. And so people can go to nextchannel.com and then sign up.
Sign up.
Okay.
And can do play with it for free pretty much. We're gonna make those pricing changes soon, so you can also use all the secrets management and stuff. And you can run stuff on GPUs, and
Ooh. Okay.
so typically a pain to set up.
Yes. So you're solving a big problem for people to start up with the data science and this kind of things as well.
And for all Clojurists, like right now we're thinking, if we're gonna have to integrate par infer or par edit or and which to make default. So anybody who has an opinion on that should please reach out.
Yes. So tweet at Next Channel.
Yes.
Or Martin's tweet that we'll put it in the description. So that's it from us for today, I think. And a big thanks for our Patreons. We have a couple of new folks helping us as well. And we have another episode scheduled pretty soon that we're going to record next week. So hopefully this episode will be out in 1 or 2 weeks once our engineer comes back from vacation.
Yes, we might get Martin for Santa Claus. You never know.
Yes, exactly. So that's it, episode number 55. See you guys and girls and folks, everybody again in the next episode.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.